Hi everyone. In this video I want to show you how to upgrade your installation of Omeka Classic using the command line. You can also do this with an FTP client and maybe I will make a video that shows how to do that. But in this video we're going to focus specifically on using the command line. So you'll know it's time to upgrade when you log into your Omeka admin module. And you'll see a message at the top of the screen that tells you a newer version is available. Typically what I like to do is go through the steps using a virtual machine, a test instance virtual machine that I've spun up. So I like to use VirtualBox, and I have a few videos on my channel that show how to set this sort of thing up. You'll see that in my case, I've set up a test environment. What I like to do is just have something that mirrors the production environment as best as I can, and then I clone it so that way if I mess something up I don't have to rebuild the test server. I can just delete the clone, I can reclone it and go from there. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this video. I'm not actually updating my production environment. I'm first using this test environment to make sure I'm setting things up properly. So this mirrors my production server pretty closely. And it ensures that I'm not destroying my production server. Now the first thing we should do is go to the Omeka website, and if we go to Omeka Classic and the user manual, in the left hand side of the screen we'll find a link for upgrading. So what we'll do is we'll go through each of these steps and update our instance of Omeka. The first directive we have here is to back up our database, which is our MySQL database. I have already SSH'd into my server, and I'm in my home directory. And the first thing that I like to do is just run this command here, cat var www html db ini. And so what this is going to do is show us our database initialization file, which gives us information that we can use to make our MySQL backup. And what I like to do is make a folder in my home directory to keep these sorts of backups. It's always nice to have them on hand. I haven't done that with this database, so I'm going to do that, or this with this server, so I'm going to do that right now. I'll make directory, I'll call it my SQL backups, and I'll just make sure it's there. We'll change directories into that, and so now I can run my backup command, which is the MySQL dump command. And so all we need to do is MySQL dump _u, and normally I actually use root as the user, but different people probably have different setups. So this is the best approach here, to use this username that we have in our database initialization file. So I'm going to use, in mine, it's Omeka user. You can use whatever you have there. Omeka _user, and then -p for password. And the database name is here under DB name, and so mine is called Omeka. And then we will do the greater than sign to pipe into a document, and we'll just call this Omeka. And what I like to do with backups is just to do the date, and that way I know when the backup was created. And don't forget to do .sql at the end. And so it's asking for my password, and here you can see its password. This is not the sort of thing you ever want to share with others. This is not how my production environment is set up. I do change things for these videos. So it's a really bad idea to share share your database initialization file with others because it has this crucial information. Okay, so I've created my backup. Let's just have a look here and see what we have. So yes, we have done that. And I'm going to clear the screen. So we have our backup file. Let's see what the next step is. So what they're telling us here is to deactivate our plugins. And we do that in the admin module. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go to plugins, and I only have two currently that I have installed. So what I'm going to do is just click deactivate on each of those. And now would also be a good time to update plugins if you have them. So what I would do is I would just go to the Omeka plugins page, Omeka plugins. And what I would do is look at each one. So I have CSV import and Dublin Core extended. Look at CSV import first. And so the latest version is 2.0.4. I already have that installed. Dublin Core extended, we have 2.2. Dublin Core is 2.2. So in this case, I don't need to update my plugins. They're already up to date. So now we're on step 3. Move your old Omeka installation out of the way. And this part can be tricky, and if you don't run the right commands, you could lose everything. So what we're going to do actually is we're going to do two backups for this. And so I'm just going to go into my home folder, and first I'll do make directory Omeka backup, and I'm also going to do make directory temp. And so what I'm doing with this temp directory is I'm just going to store a copy here. And this is just in case things go wrong down the road. And there's a good chance I may also zip it at the end just to kind of save the old version. But this does come in handy simply because if you run a move command in Linux, sometimes if you have a typo in it, it could really mess things up. So it's a really good idea to have a copy of your entire Omeka installation. So what I like to do in that case is first I'm going to copy to my temp directory, so cp-r, and so the source of that is at var www html. I don't know where yours is. You may just only have it in the www directory. It may not be in the HTML. That's something you'll want to kind of look into before you start doing this stuff. So we want to move everything in the HTML file or directory to this new temp location, which is home libadmin temp. And so go ahead and hit enter, and this is going to take a couple seconds. And so let's go into our temp directory, and you'll see the HTML is in there. Let's make sure everything transferred properly recursively. That's what this -r is to copy everything recursively from HTML. So that means all directories, all files that are contained within the HTML directory. So let's go in there and make sure all of our files transferred properly. List. And so yes, all of my files on the web server have been put into this temp folder. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my home directory, and now I am going to move all of the files from the web directory, which is the var www html directory, to my backup directory. So this time I'm going to use the move command, mv-v for verbose. This will kind of show us what's happening. And we are moving everything from var HTML. So everything in this folder is now going to be moved to, and you want to put the asterisk at the end so that it copies everything. It kind of is the same thing as the -r, only for directories, or for moving directories. And we want to move this to home, libadmin, Omeka backup. And so it looks like that worked. Let's just change into the Omeka backup directory. Okay, so now we have our we now have two different backups in our home directory. One is in the Omeka backup and one is in temp. And we're keeping this temp around just in case things go south. Okay, moving on, we will go to step 4, download and unzip the latest version of Omeka. So I'm just going to go back to this plugins page and go back to Omeka Classic. So we want to download the latest version. And what I'm going to do is right click on this and copy link address. And we will quickly go back here, download and unzip the latest version of Omeka into the empty directory where your previous install of Omeka was located. So we need to go to change directory var. Okay, so you'll notice that this directory is completely empty now, which is a good thing. And we moved all of the contents from our web server to our home directory so that we can kind of keep them in a safe place. I'm going to use the wget command, and I will just paste the URL in here. And so wget will just grab the download for us, and go ahead and hit enter. And now we can unzip the file. Okay, now we can list the contents. And so currently we have two files in here. I actually want to remove the zip file just to keep things clean. And now what I want to do is move this Omeka directory into the HTML directory so that things look the way they did at the start. And just to clear things. And so I'm going to use the move command again. And so we have move_v var www html and Omeka. And so what we want to do is move all of the contents. We need to put the asterisk here. We want to move all of the contents of the Omeka 2.6.1 directory into var www html. And go ahead and hit enter list. And now we have all of the contents of the Omeka 2.1 or 2.6.1 directory in the HTML directory, which is where my stuff was living. Sometimes people may name things differently. The way I have things set up is it's just everything lives in the Omeka folder. There is no extra directory in my URL path. So now what I want to do is I want to remove the Omeka directory, so I can do that with rm-r and then the file or the directory, and so that is gone. Okay, now we can go back to our instructions, and we are now on step 5. Move or copy the following files and directories from your old Omeka folder. So this is why we made copies of our previous Omeka installation, so that we can go back and grab some of this stuff. And so what they're saying is we want to include the db-ini file, we want the files directory, and anything else that has been custom built by you. So plugins is another one. And any of Omeka's core files, which you shouldn't be hacking into, but sometimes it's just necessary to do that in order to get things to work the way you want. I've only gone into one core file to do things, and I'll show you how I go about that as we go along. But the things that you will be most interested in are the db-ini and the files. So let's go back to our shell, and these are all the things that are currently in there. So what I'm going to do is actually remove the new db-ini file. I am also going to remove, and don't forget to include the -r when it's a directory, the files directory, so that can go. I'm going to use the up arrow, and I am also going to delete the plugins directory because I have custom plugins in there. And then up arrow, and finally I have a lot of customizations in the themes directory as well, so I'm going to remove those. Let's list and see if all of that has been removed. db-ini is gone, files is gone, plugins is gone, and themes is gone. So now I want to replace all of those things that I've deleted with the older versions that I have. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll just do the db-ini file first. So I'm just going to move -v, and the -v again is for verbose, and that's just telling us as things are being moved from one place to another. It's just showing us that here db-ini is being moved from the Omeka directory to the HTML directory. It's kind of handy to have, I guess. So mv-v, home, libadmin, Omeka backup, and db-ini. So what I'm doing is I'm moving the file that I put into the backup directory, and I'm going to move it to var www html into this directory here. And so we'll list, and you'll see that db-ini is now in there. Okay, let's clear our screen. Okay, so now we want to replace all of those directories that we deleted, and what we'll need to do is actually make those directories again. So make directory files, and we'll make directory plugins, and we'll make directory themes. So now I can move all of the contents from our backup directory into the web server directory. We'll do that with the move command, mv-v and home, libadmin, Omeka backup. And so first we'll do files and slash. Don't forget the asterisk. It's very important that you include the asterisk because you don't want to lose all of the contents of files. That holds all of your images, and you don't want to lose those. In my case, it's not a huge deal because I don't use files. We've tied our Omeka instance to AWS S3, which kind of makes things easier for us and allows the uh, that allows the Omeka repository to grow. Um, I have a video on how to go about setting that up. It's very cheap and it works quite well. Uh, in any case, uh, off of that tangent, let's go back. So we're moving all the contents of the files from backup to our web directory. Okay, so we have our files there. Let's just check to see if everything was moved into the files directory properly. And list everything. And sure enough, they have. These are all the contents that should be in there. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back and I'm gonna use the up arrow to get to my move command, because everything's the same except for the directory. So in Omeka backup, I also want to put my plugins directory, and rather than files, we're moving it to the plugins directory in the web directory. Okay, so again, I just want to look at this to make sure everything transferred properly, and I see everything has. All of my plugins are accounted for there. I'm just going to clear my screen to make things easier. Okay, so we will use the up arrow, and the last thing we need to do is themes. So I'm just going to change themes. In the file paths. Okay, so again, I'm going to look at, whoops, I'm going to look at the themes directory, and so that is in there. I'm just going to look at the one that I use or built my custom theme off of, which is seasons, and I see that my custom stuff is in here, so I'm in good shape. So at this point, I'm in a place where I can probably have a look at my updates. And so if we come in here, we'll notice that things look a little off. Go into browse items, all of my images are gone, pointing to the wrong place. Now that's because I hacked into the core files to make Amazon Web Services work for me. Again, I have a video on how to do that if you're interested in having a look. But in order for me to make my site look the way it's supposed to, I'm going to have to do one more move command. And essentially what happens is in the applications config directory, there is a config.ini file, and that's where I set things up for Amazon Web Services to point to my Omeka directory, so that, well, actually the Omeka directory looks at the images I have stored in Amazon S3. And I had to make those configurations in the config ini file. So what I need to do is run another move command, and I'll just use the up button here. And in this case, where I want to go is to application /config. And I don't want this asterisk here because I'm grabbing a file, and it's the config ini file. And what I want to do is put this in my web directory. So I'm going to go to application config and I want to put that config.ini file in this directory. So this has overwritten my config file. If I go to test instance, now we see that my images are all are back there, and you see when we click on the images up here, it's in the Amazon file server, the S3 server. Okay, let's go back to our instructions. Finally, you may need to upgrade your database. As you can see, we don't need to. The other thing is you want to make sure you go back into plugins and make sure you reactivate these. And that pretty much covers it. I do want to point out that, let's see, if we go to, so if we're in our web directory, and I just want to list everything, anything that you've gone into here and did customizations in your older version, it's going to have to be redone here as well. So if you went into admin or application, you're going to have to make the same changes in those directories that you made in your old one. It's pretty unlikely that you did that, and I think it's a really good idea to keep a list of these changes you've made, whether it's in a spreadsheet or whatever. You want to keep track of any changes you make in these directories: admin, application, install, which is pretty unlikely. Any of these documents here, if you've done any customizations to those, let's see, if you do the command ls-a, that lists hidden files as well, so you'll see that the htaccess is another one of those things. So if you've made any changes to the htaccess file, which I've had to do simply between test servers and production servers. Our production server is HTTPS. My test servers are just HTTP. So I have to go into htaccess and fix that. So for example, if we look at the htaccess file at the very bottom, I've configured things here. You'll see production needs the below code so that HTTPS works. So this code here was commented out. So if I mirror exactly what my production server looks like, it comes with files like this. And depending on how you do things, if you had to so if you're updating your production server, if it's HTTPS and you're using this code, you want to make sure that you go in and put this back in on your production server. It didn't matter in this case because it was a development server, but in any case, this is another one of those files that you may have to replace, or make sure that you have the older version installed. So that is how we update Omeka Classic. It's a pretty straightforward process, though it can be a little intimidating. And I do think, right at the start when we made the copy of all of that stuff, that's a very important thing because, in all honesty, I've done this a few times over the past couple of years, and this is the one that went smooth. Every other time I've done things like lost images or completely lost files. So like I said, it's a really good idea to go about doing this in a test environment before you do it in the production environment. So I thank you for watching. Please like the video, please share, and I will see you in the next video.